Welcome, everyone. This is Polyglot Podcast. I am Christian, and today I have Chenelle Hancock as a guest. Welcome, Chenelle.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Christian, for having me on your show. I'm glad to be here.
No problem. I saw your Twitter account, and I thought that it would be interesting to talk with you about languages. And also, I saw the 5 flags or 6 on your account. So I thought maybe you know the languages or have some sort of connection to these countries or languages. So I wanted to talk more about that. But yeah, let's maybe start by your introduction, like short introduction. Then after that, we will start talking more in detail about everything.
Okay. I'm Chenelle Hancock. I'm the host of Chenelle's Language Learning Journey podcast and the Blind Vegan podcast, where I talk about language learning. I interview people from around the world about their different language learning journeys. I started it 4 years ago, back in May of 2018, because there wasn't anybody who was legally blind who had a language learning podcast. So I said, I might as well do this. And I wanted to tell my story and how I learn languages using non-visual aids such as audio, mostly, video, so forth and so on. So I did that, and then some years later, I created a vegan podcast last year called The Blind Vegan, talking about veganism and then interviewing people in the vegan space, medical experts and other people, along with sharing recipes that I make that are 100% plant-based. So yeah, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I'm 46 years old. My background originally is theater studies. I studied theater studies at Kent State University, where I got my bachelor's degree in theater, and then I went and got my film degree from the Los Angeles Film School in directing. I also have a certification to teach English as a foreign language to learners who are younger than 18 and business people. My whole language learning journey mostly is hobby-based. I learned my first language was English, and then which is my main language. And then my second language was American Sign Language when I was 5. But I didn't start learning any other foreign languages until I reached college. Yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Yeah. So you're from Ohio. Were you born and raised in Ohio?
Yeah, Cleveland, Ohio, yes. But I've lived in like 7 other states as well. So yeah.
Yeah. But Cleveland is like your hometown.
Yeah, it's my hometown, but I currently live about 40 minutes away, southeast of Cleveland. Is a town called Akron, Ohio, where LeBron James and Stephen Curry.
Yeah. Yeah, the famous basketball players. How big is Ohio as a state?
It's the second smallest state in the U.S. next to Rhode Island.
Yeah. Okay. And so when you grew
it's in
up,
the Midwest.
Yeah,
it's in the Midwest.
Midwest.
So so it's connected by Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Virginia, Kentucky, and Pennsylvania.
Yeah. All right. So your parents, do they speak in different way as, I mean, do you have an accent in Ohio or, a dialect in English? Can you distinguish if you?
I think it depends, like where you come from. Like in Ohio, if you're in Southern Ohio, you might have more of a Southern accent because you're going towards the South. But I really don't pay attention. Like I can tell you right now, I'm the only person in my family that speaks any language other than English.
Yeah.
I was raised by my mom, a single parent, so we spoke English.
Yeah,
There
yeah,
were no,
no, yeah, I understand that. I was just wondering about the differences in the states. So
yeah, it depends. I mean, if you're from the Midwest, I mean that covers um all the states that I mentioned, plus like Minnesota and Wisconsin, Missouri, Kansas, Iowa. Um, they all have different accents. It just depends.
yeah, so the differences aren't that big in that area.
Right. Well, no, I mean, you probably can tell, but I mean, I don't really pay attention to that so much.
Yeah. What about people from like East Coast, West Coast?
Yeah, it just depends. Well, yeah, they do. It just depends on where you're from. I
Yeah.
mean, because I'm African American, but I can tell you there are African Americans that live in Yonkers or the Bronx, and you can tell they're from Yonkers and the Bronx because of how they speak. You have people from the South, black and white, both, where they have a Southern accent. It just depends. I mean, now if you're from like Montana, and I know somebody's from Montana, Caucasian, and you know they're from Montana
Hmm.
just because of how they speak. So, or the Dakotas, for instance. It just depends. Like, yeah, it does.
Yeah. Okay, that's just something interesting to which I usually ask from my guests how the situation is in their home countries because in some countries the differences are really big, and here in Finland the differences aren't that big nowadays as
Hmm.
it used to be. But I can definitely say if someone is from the north or from uh, south or west or uh, not that precisely, but I can tell. Okay, this person is not from the capital city area.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what was the first foreign language that you started learning?
Um, the first foreign language I learned was Spanish. And I learned that about 23 years ago when I started community college. I didn't have a choice in the matter because that was the only language that they had where you can go from beginner to high intermediate. And at that time, I learned everything by ear. So I would spend about 12 and a half hours a week learning Spanish. Um, I would say about 2.5 hours was class time.
Mhm.
The other 10 hours was about 2 hours a day, 6 days a week, um, being tutored. And then the rest of it was just me listening to Spanish music or um, Telemundo or Univision court dramas. I had one that was a favorite of mine, El Corto de Pueblo, um, The Court of the People. And I listened to that a lot, but I was more focused on the grammar, I would say, than
Mhm.
I was the vocabulary. I didn't really like Spanish, like speaking it, because I didn't have, this is when the internet was new. So I didn't
Yeah.
have anyone to speak with. I didn't live in a community in Cleveland where I could talk to people who were Spanish speaking. So I just listened to a lot of music like Ricky Martin, Shakira, Enrique Iglesias, Jennifer Lopez. Um, I listened to all that a lot. I still listen to Spanish
Yeah.
music. I actually, but I I enjoyed the cultural elements of Spanish more so than speaking it. I kind of felt like it was forced upon me because uh, I didn't have any other options at the time, and I had to have a foreign language requirement for my degree. So I
Okay.
took for
What? Yeah. What degree was that?
my theater degree. So I used it for my theater degree, but I also used it for a math requirement. I took like 4 semesters of Spanish, which I got a B in. And then I wound up taking a semester of a course called Introductory to Logic, which is word association math, pretty much. And I got a C in that, and I was able to not have to take 1060 algebra because of it. But it kind of worked in my favor in that way. I don't regret doing it, but I will say that if I had it to do over again, I probably would have taken like French or Russian or Arabic or something.
Okay, why was that? So
Mainly because I was interested in those languages and passionate about those languages for a very long time. And I was, my high school education, I wasn't able to take 4 languages. I was put into a classroom setting for people that had learning difficulties, and I wasn't mainstreamed in, the regular classes, so I didn't get the same type of education that the rest of my peers were getting. And as a result of that, I said, well, when I get to college, I'm going to take what I want to take. But unfortunately, that didn't happen in regards to that opportunity to take either of those 3 languages. I would have had to travel on 2 buses just to get to the west side of Cleveland to take a Russian course. Or I would have had to go downtown to the downtown campus just to take French or Arabic. So because of transportation, I rode door-to-door transportation, or my grandfather would drive me. I wasn't able to do that. So I just made it up in my mind that once I graduated from school altogether, I would just pursue it as a hobby,
okay.
which is what
Yeah, so you chose Spanish because of the circumstances. The other
right.
campuses were too far away that it would have been a hassle to go there.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
What was difficult in learning Spanish?
Oh, it wasn't difficult. I picked it up very well. Now I will say I learned by ear.
Yeah.
So I I was able to mind map in my head like the different conjugations. Like I said, I picked up the grammar very well. It's just I didn't have the opportunity to do what most people would want, which is speak.
Yeah.
And this is why I say sometimes going to school to learn a foreign language is not that beneficial, because they only teach you the grammar side of it. Okay, let's conjugate these verbs. Let's order, go to a restaurant and order food. I was able to do the basics, but
Yeah.
when it came down to ask for directions somewhere, or I need to say I need medical help, or whatever the case is, um, there was never any speaking. I learned uh, Mexican American Spanish from 3 people that were Mexican, and 2 of them were Mexican American, and one of them came over from Mexico City. And so I learned a lot, but the problem I had was I didn't have the opportunity to speak it. And a lot of people, their confidence level wasn't the greatest. It wasn't like people were that enthusiastic about taking this class,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah, I mean, everyone had their reasons why they needed it, but I can tell you, I took it. I got all B's in every course, but I just was not, that enthusiastic, let's say. I mean, I was more enthusiastic about going out to lunch or dinner at a restaurant, or going and using my brief Spanish to be able to buy food, or, you know, try to use it.
Yeah.
And I actually was able to use some of it when I was living in California, when I went to film school. But even then, it was, you get people giving you flack for you're not as proficient at speaking their language as they are yours. Well, when you don't have, you know, like apps that we have today, or the internet wasn't as strong as it is now, I wasn't in environments where there were, Spanish speaking people over there. Yeah, it was hard, and my confidence level went down because of that. So yeah, I just stopped speaking altogether because I was
So,
tired of being criticized
okay,
for
so the natives criticized you when you didn't speak like perfect Spanish.
right, but there's no such thing. Like I've learned that over the years, the more
Yeah.
languages you learn, every foreigner will sit there and tell you the same. I was like, okay, so how well is your English?
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, I know a few words in Finnish. I mean, but I mean, I find the Finnish language to be fascinating. But otherwise, I'm sitting there thinking, who am I going to speak this with? You know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Can you now mention what's fascinating in the Finnish language?
Well, I mean, I love the culture, the people, the history of it, the language itself, the way it sounds is totally different.
Yeah.
I get a high off of different sounding languages that, I mean, most people I learn, they'll say they speak like 5 languages, and all 5 languages come from the same language family.
Mm,
There's no variety.
yeah.
A lot of it is, okay, let's speak all these European languages. Well, okay, I live in an area where I run into more Arabs, so I do speak some Arabic. And I say some because I'm not natively fluent at all,
Yeah.
but I'm able to get around, ordering food, going to a market and asking for certain items in Arabic, the basics to be able to survive a little bit, and I enjoy it. I taught myself how to cook food
Yeah.
that way and using YouTube and whatnot. So I mean, and I enjoy it. I'm very much someone that's a people person, and I like to connect with food and culture, and because that's a good way to connect with anybody. Actually, is their
Yeah.
stomach. So if you could say a few words in someone else's language, that means something. You don't have to be 100% native. No one's going to be, especially if you weren't born there. You're not going to know all the idioms and slang and all this. You're just not going to.
Mm. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
People appreciate it when, for example, you travel in their country and you can say like some basics like hi and thank you and
Right.
things like
Yeah.
this. So is the in Cleveland the Spanish speaking community? I guess it isn't that big as in California, for example.
Well, we actually have a multi plethora of different people from all over the world in Cleveland. So I mean, we got Arabs and Russians and people from Venezuela and people from a lot of the Latina population lives on the west side of Cleveland.
Hmm.
Uh, and then you have a lot of the Russians and uh, the other Slavs. They live on the east side of Cleveland, like in the suburbs, like Mayfield and different Euclid and different places, Beechwood and different places. So it just depends. Um, but yeah, it's a variety of different people. I mean, where I live at, it's very like we have a lot of Arabs on my street. It's a mixture of people. I probably spoke Spanish once or twice since I've been in Akron,
Mm.
but yeah, I mean they get a kick out of me, coming into their shop and just saying a little bit. It didn't even have to say much. I I'll give you a prime example. My goal was I wanted to be able to be proficient enough in Cantonese in order to get on the
Mhm.
phone and order me some food,
Oh wow.
give my address and telephone number.
Yeah.
And I did that in about 6 weeks using the Mango app.
In 6 weeks from zero to like ordering what
Yes.
is it, food from a Chinese restaurant with
Yeah.
Cantonese natives.
Yeah. Yeah. But this was the funny part. The person I was speaking with over the phone spoke Mandarin, but she understood everything I said, and she was like, "Your Cantonese is good. You need to keep going with it."
Yeah. Wow.
But that was my only goal. I didn't have any other goal other than that.
Yeah. Like how is there? Is this your favorite restaurant, or did you know they speak Cantonese and not Mandarin? This restaurant, or
No,
how?
no, no. And it wasn't even my favorite restaurant. I just called one up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I Googled it and I found me one and I dialed it and I was like, okay. And then I just started speaking Cantonese and but what I wanted, they only made in Hong Kong. I wanted barbecue beef bun.
Yeah.
Time I was still eating meat and they said that's only made in Hong Kong. So I had got me some sesame chicken instead with fried rice and broccoli. And she was like, your Cantonese is really good. How long did it take you to learn all this? 6 weeks. What? Yeah.
Mhm.
Wait.
Can
Yeah.
you remember the name of the food in the dish in Cantonese? Can you mention it
No.
now? I know. Okay.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
no.
And was this your first like Asian language, or did you know already some
Yes.
Mandarin or some?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my first Asian language.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but I will say, um, I have been in Asian restaurants, a couple of them, and some of them are really nice, and some of them are very they have uh they had an issue serving me because I was legally blind with a guide dog.
Yeah.
And so, but I've heard that from other people where they frown upon people that are low vision or next.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, um,
Why? Why?
I think some of it is because in their own country, like they're blind and visually impaired are seen but not heard.
Yeah. So they keep them outside of like the streets and somewhere inside the houses, or?
Well, I mean, they don't. Their version of recognizing people who have limited vision um, difficulties, it's almost like we don't really exist. Like we don't really have that many rights over there. I've had people go over there and teach and English as a foreign student,
Mhm.
and yeah, it was for them. It was very difficult. Like yeah,
And these were like blind people or nearly blind.
just blind people in general. People part of the blind community.
Yeah.
A lot of times people assume that if you can't see 20/20 in both eyes or you have some type of vision issue, okay, you either see like me or you can't see at all, and there is a middle ground. And there are people that have different eye conditions. My eye condition is retinopathy of prematurity, which means I was born 3 months premature due to having a lot of exposure to oxygen and not having my eyes covered and
Mm.
not having them develop very well. I only could see out of my left eye, which is
Yeah.
my good eye. Cannot see out of my right eye at all, never could. And I had two surgeries about 42 years ago um, to have the vision that I have in my left eye. But I would be considered legally blind, which means I could at the time use magnifiers and closed caption televisions, and I still wrote longhand and um, used typewriters back then and whatnot. I still used print and
Hmm.
audio. So now, the more I've used my readable vision, the worse it's gotten. So I no longer read print. I do a lot of listening to everything audio only. And I do know some Braille, but because I grew up in a print world, I was pretty much discouraged from using any Braille because they assumed that I live in a sighted world, so I need to do like they do. And they didn't think that my vision would decline due to me using it as much as I did. The more you strain your vision, the worse it gets. And that's what
Mhm.
happened with me. So, as a result of that, I do everything auditorily. Like I use voiceover, like I have voiceover on my phone now, on my iPhone 11 Pro. I use an Echo. I have everything's hands free. I do have a Bluetooth keyboard that I can type on and pair with my phone or whatever, or my TV or whatever. But at the end of the day, I'm still able to function. Um, I just can't fill out paperwork and I can't drive a car.
Yeah.
But I see the bigger picture, not the smaller picture in regards to my sight loss issues. But at the same time, if you're not educated on people's vision loss issues, you're going to automatically assume everyone's the same. And that's
Yeah.
not the case. And you're just going to have some pushback behind that. And I think that a lot of countries out there, especially blind people I've heard from, like in the Middle East, India, Asia, that they get a lot of pushback because of you know them having a visual disability. And then there's some cultures where they even blame the person for their disability because of their own beliefs or whatever,
Yeah.
which I think is crazy, but
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So yeah, I understand in Asia it's a bit different there. Um,
Middle East is even worse.
where?
In the Middle East,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, if you live in certain parts of the Middle East and you have a vision problem, if you don't know computers, if you can't get yourself a job, you're pretty much screwed.
Yeah. Um, I guess 20 years ago, the when the technology wasn't that developed as now, it was. Can you compare a bit how learning languages was maybe when you were in your 20s and now in the recent years? Because I think now we have much better tools.
It's funny. It's funny you say that because everything was audio for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a textbook, and the tutors would have to read everything, and I would have to remember everything by memory.
Yeah.
Like I took no notes of any kind. I just
Mhm.
remembered from memory.
Yeah.
However, I'm going to be honest. I actually enjoyed. I didn't really go on the internet or anything. I just did it the old-fashioned way, compact CDs and
Yeah. Yeah.
watching Telemundo, especially watching the telenovelas.
Hmm.
I would watch the telenovelas, and those were fun to watch because it was like 6 months of the same storyline.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that wasn't so bad. Now, I will say I had a friend who was also legally blind, but he wound up losing all his sight to retinitis pigmentosa. And I was good with the grammar. Like I could correct you on how you said things in class, or if you said a swear word versus this, I can tell you that. He
Hmm.
was better with vocabulary.
Yeah.
Like he could hear, watch something, like literally listen to it and tell you what the hell happened in the story. So that's how it kind of worked. And I actually had a professor in my third semester, my 2010 class, which is like low intermediate. Um, she spoke German, English, and Spanish. And she would have us memorize stuff and tell about what we did on our vacations in Spanish and give
Hmm.
presentations because she knew we didn't get speaking practice in the last 2 semesters that we had. There was none whatsoever. And I mean, pretty much people were studying for the test. That's pretty much what was going on. And to be honest, that kind of sucked. But
Hmm.
I enjoyed the fact that we got to speak, you know. But yeah, it wasn't, I mean, I did learn how to read like Spanish Braille because of it, and I got to still listen to my favorite music and eat my favorite food. So that was
Yeah.
probably more of a comfort to me. But otherwise, I I just did everything audio. I mean, I didn't even search the internet for anything.
Mm-hmm. At what
I know
point
other.
did you start like using more the internet?
Well, I used it for like when I needed to do like reports, like in English or whatever, or just socially. I would use it, like, because I'm a big Star Trek fan, so I would be on different sites for that or whatever, or go on Amazon to buy books or music or what movies or whatever. But aside from that, I really wasn't like the biggest internet person in college. I was too busy trying to study and keep my grades up.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I was mostly hooked to my CD player slash um, radio slash cable television.
Yeah.
I really wasn't, unless it was school related, I really wasn't on the internet for recreational purposes
Mm-hmm.
until I would say about when I started doing languages, I would say about 2014.
So you
2014.
started also learning more languages around that time.
Yeah, actually, what I did was I hadn't taken a Spanish course in 12 years, but I remember that I kept having as much exposure to the language because I would listen to my favorite music all the time, which I still do. And I realized I had become natively fluent from just exposure. So as a result of that, I um, I took a class at the Hadley School for the Blind and Visually Impaired online, and it was a Spanish conversation course.
Yeah.
So I did it, and I did part one, and I got like a B plus, and then I did part two, and I did both of those courses in 9 weeks, and it was like 20 lessons, and I did it in Braille, and I did the lessons, and everything started coming back to me from over 12 years ago.
Yeah.
My problem was I didn't have enough vocabulary in my toolbox, I would say, but I had a lot of grammar. And the instructor taught French and Spanish, and she was just completely blown away that I was able to get, through the Spanish course, these conversational Spanish courses,
Mm-hmm.
the certificates for in 9 weeks, because a lot of people couldn't. And I said, yeah, I had Spanish 12 years ago when I went to community college.
Yeah.
But I still continued to listen to the music. So that's what my exposure was. And that gave me the courage to go a year later. On March 15th, 2015, I started learning Russian because I always wanted to learn.
Yeah. Which year was this?
2015.
It's 2015. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I used Pimsleur at first, but then I found that to be slow. And then I had found somebody named Michelle Thomas. I know who the hell this person was. And I had found videos about his life on YouTube, and I just started watching it. And then I saw all these videos, how to learn Russian, how to learn this. I guess people loaded them up on the site or whatever. So I just started listening to them, and it just started clicking in my head. And then I found an app by Mark Thompson called Russian Made Easy. And I went through that in a week and a half. Then I found a Spoonful of Russian podcast, and I went through that. And then I found the Memrise, Memrise, app, and I just started using the flashcards. And I just went through every single one, level 1, level 2, all the way up to 7. And then I just started subscribing to podcasts in Russian. And then I said I had to pick somebody to model. So I picked President Putin. Out of all people, but yes, it is.
Yeah.
And I mean, okay, politics aside, I liked his speaking. So that's why I did.
Yeah.
I really give a crap about all that. So, and then I started trying to join groups on Facebook for Russian, learning Russian and whatnot. And I'm going to be honest, they were the most warm and welcoming people on the face of the planet. I will say that.
Were they like mostly Russian speakers in the US, or was it like
Oh no, no,
from all over the world and Russia?
they were, yeah, they were from Russia, all over Russia. I still have a lot of Russian friends until this day. Um, um, my ex-boyfriend was Russian, by the way, but
Mm.
I had several goals in Russian. I wanted to learn how to make food in Russian. So I learned all the food and all the different colors
Yeah.
and what I did was I didn't have anybody to talk to. So I just started talking to myself
Yeah.
and I started recording myself on video and putting it out there for people to hear on Facebook. And that's what happened. That's how that all got started.
Mhm.
Then I found something called the Polyglot group. I know who the hell Polyglot was, and I just did not.
Yeah.
I so green. And I got known in that community for the blind chick, which I'm visually impaired, but the blind chick that speaks Russian or that's learning Russian or whatever. I mean, I wasn't intimidated. I was quite happy. Oh, hold on real quick.
Chenelle, honey, I got your packages down my house.
Okay, thank you. Murdoch.
You want me, I bring them down here for you? All right, I'll be right back.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
No
Somebody
problem. No
delivered
problem. Yeah.
my
No problem.
mail to the wrong place,
Okay.
which is crazy. I mean, it's Amazon, so what can you say? But
Yeah.
to make a long story short, I started doing that, and I started creating my own routine for learning languages. And my goal at the end, which it took me 3 years, I'm not going to lie, I did a whole year of nothing but speaking all the time, and that's what helped me. And then I did a lot of listening for a whole year. So by the time year 3 came, I was able to have a conversation in Russian, no headaches, like with Spanish, I would get headaches. But Dr. Krashen actually said the reason why I was getting headaches was because I wasn't comfortable with the language and it wasn't my language.
So you got headaches in the beginning.
Yeah, I got headaches when I was trying to speak, when I was forcing myself to speak Spanish, yes.
Mm.
And a lot of that was because I was not comfortable speaking Spanish. I didn't like speaking Spanish, and I was forcing myself to do it
Yeah.
for other people. And I wasn't. But I found if it's a language I like, I will speak it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't care that I butcher it because you need to make mistakes. I believe in that 100%.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, it's crazy. It's
And
I
after
enjoy, speaking a lot. That's my main thing. I mean, I don't do a lot of writing in the languages that I do, but I love to speak.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I don't want to read what you wrote me. I want to hear what you have to say.
I have before you continue 2 questions. So I think we can actually explain something about the Braille script, because I think not all of our listeners know what Braille is.
Okay, so Braille is a reading system that blind people or low vision people can learn to use for mathematics, for if they want to be able to read a book. You can take down notes using what's called a slate and stylus, and you take it down like you have to do it backwards. Like there's 6 cells, and so like there's 1, 2, 3 on the left, and on the right is 4, 5, 6, and these different cells can make different letters and different words, which can be put in combinations to make other words.
And
so
you use always your like fingers. Is it always the index finger or?
yeah, well, yeah, you can like you take both of your index fingers on both of your hands and you'll read from left to right. You know, the different words and stuff, but I mean you can use your whole hand too. It just depends on the person,
Yeah.
for the most part. And I mean, nowadays people are using braille, a braille display, which is like this device that you can use to connect to your phone, your tablet, your computer, and the print that's on the screen will come up in braille on your tablet. I mean, on your display, and you're able to read what it is. And they'll come in 12 cell, 20 cell, 32 cell, 40 cell, and 80 cell.
Yeah.
And 80 cell is pretty much like a 8x11 sheet of paper. And you wouldn't be able to take that anywhere with you. You would just have to use that at home or in your office. But not everyone has an 80 cell display. Most people have a 40 cell. And they're very expensive devices to get. You can't just buy them anywhere. You can't even do a payment plan. That's how expensive they are.
Yeah.
So not everybody knows Braille. The select few who can, if you learned it in school, that's one thing. But if you didn't learn it, you can learn it from going to the Hatley School for the Blind or Visually Impaired and learning how to learn it, you know, independently. But I'm going to be honest, I learned Braille back in '85 when I was 8 years old. They thought it would be beneficial for me, even though I had readable vision, where I was still reading large print and stuff and writing.
Yeah, in your left eye.
In my left eye, yeah.
Yeah.
So as a result of that, I still know Braille. And well, the cool thing is, the more languages I learned, as long as I learned the alphabet, punctuation and all that, I could be able to read. I would be literate. I can read French, Italian, Dutch, Spanish, Russian, English, and I think that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you write?
Well, when I was younger, I used a pen and paper.
Yeah.
Yeah. But because I had usable vision, so I learned how to read at 4 with large print books. So I learned print before I learned to Braille.
Yeah.
So I've always known how to write since I was a kid. I still remember how.
Yeah.
Like I learned cursive at 10. So yeah, but now I can't write like I used to. I mean, I'm lucky to be able to sign my name and write the date.
Yeah, yeah.
But
people who don't see anything, like from their both eyes, who are blind from their both eyes, can they write? Is there a technique to write?
Well, I think that depends on the individual, because I know people where they learn just their first initial of their first name and their first initial of their last name, just so they would be able to you know, make a signature. Because a lot of people didn't teach their kids. A lot of the people I knew didn't teach their kids how to write. But there is a system where you can teach people print using different methods. I know someone, they use like raised letters that was in the print shape of like an A or an S, and they felt it, and then they were able to trace it with a pen. So they would know what it looks like, because they can't see, so they're learning tactile.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it just depends on the person. I mean, I know plenty of people that, you know, nowadays they're teaching a lot of these young kids that are blind a lot of the technology. and like text-to-speech software like JAWS for Windows, NVDA, which is off the shelf, VoiceOver, different voice view, different text-to-speech software. And I mean, a lot of them have gone on to do some great things, become like computer engineers and all use computers like crazy. I know people that can take computers apart and put them back together with no problems, but I'm not that big of a geek. So
Yeah.
yeah, I like the touch screen better. I use VoiceOver, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can continue now from the topic you were talking before I interrupted. I
Okay.
think.
About the speaking. Yeah. So I spoke. I decided I'm going to conquer this. I'm going to just speak every day. And I did. I mean, I had conversations with myself. I would pretend that I was in a room with President Putin and the people who work for him.
Yeah.
And I would just have conversations. But I would make it topic based. So whatever I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
I would get the vocabulary for it. And I got myself all the way up to C1 level without even getting tested.
Oh, wow.
I knew I was proficient when I could go on a website, a Russian university website.
Yeah.
And have it read it to me in Russian. And I can understand, I can get through the entire website without any problem. Even though there are some people that I know that live, well, that's basic. Well, you are native Russian. You're talking to someone that has a visual disability, no fault of her own, that taught herself your language.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a big accomplishment. If you can go on a website and you can navigate through that website to get to where you need to go in Russian, that's a big deal.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah. And I mean, when I started to understand Tolstoy in his original language, I knew I mastered the language. I knew I had by then. And that was 3 years of me sacrificing, and I didn't mind it. I mean, I got on people's nerves, but I didn't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
I learned how to make borscht. I learned how to make a few other things. Yeah, it was great. And I knew when I talked to my friend's mom, who she's learning English now, but back then she didn't know, she only knew German and Russian. And I could have a 3-hour conversation and I wasn't even tired.
Oh,
wow. I knew if I could learn Russian and people say that's difficult, I can learn anything.
And after Russian, did you then start many new languages?
I kind of dabbled. I started my podcast show and then I was dabbling in different languages because I had partnered up with Michelle Thomas Method to talk about their courses. And so as a result of that, I would go through one of their foundation courses, which is like 8 hours long.
In which
And
language?
and I mean, I literally reviewed every course they had on that site.
Like they have how many languages? 30,
Like
40,
16
more?
I think they're coming out with a Danish.
Yeah.
Eventually. And then I think there was a Hebrew that's supposed to be coming out. We don't know when now.
Okay.
But I learned the base, I went through the entire thing and then I would go and do a video using the language. And then I would give my review on my show. And then I would give the link to where they can go and use my my code in order to get like 35% off whatever foundation language they wanted. And I did make a little bit of money with them, but not a lot. But I will say I enjoyed the method a great deal. But I will say I found that there's certain languages I would have stuck to using that method. And then there was just certain languages where I knew I would never speak it.
Yeah.
You know, so once
Which ones?
I would say Swedish, Norwegian, even though I know they're similar. Their vocabulary overlaps. I would have to say, I probably wouldn't use the Mandarin course because I liked Cantonese better. And Cantonese was the older language, and Mandarin came out of Cantonese because it was more simplified because of the Mandarin being traditional. I like their Japanese course, the Russian course. Those are really good. Their French course was good. Their Italian course was okay. I did try to help someone learn German using it. I like their Arabic course. But yeah, I mean, I kind of went for the Eastern languages plus the French. That was my big thing. But then I also started using other things, like I was really big on Memorize, and I enjoyed that. I tried to use colloquial languages stuff. I tried to use that at one point because it was open sourced. And I am about, you should invest in whatever it is you're using to learn a language, because, these people make these products and it costs money to make them, and it takes about 2 years. And I went as far as to even interview, the head of Michelle Thomas, Sarah Cole, and then I interviewed a whole bunch of people that worked for the company and created a couple of courses as well, so I can get more behind the scenes of how it all went down in regards to how they created it, which I found, because a lot of people weren't doing that. A lot of the people that had language podcasts, they weren't doing that. Now, I thought that was kind of important to be, talked about. However, I was able to get some really interesting people to come on, like the more famous people, like Richard Simcott, Alice Rawlings, Vladimir Skoltetti. I got Lydia McAvoy, Shannon Kennedy, Lindsay Williams, and Kirsten Cable, and Robin McPherson. And I had a lot of people. Susanna Surisky. I had a lot of people that, Dr. Stephen Krashen. I was supposed to have Moses McCormick, but he passed away before I can interview him.
Yeah.
And
how did you get in touch with all these people? Did you send email or Instagram?
Yeah, well,
Twitter?
I followed them in the Polyglot community, and I commented on all their stuff, and they were following me too because they were very curious about my journey and how I did things. Because none of them really came in contact with someone that's legally blind, let alone totally blind. And now we have Olga Kokova, who is from Bulgaria. She's totally blind, and she's a musician and a polyglot that speaks like 18, 19 languages and sings in them too. So, I mean, like, yeah, I was able to interview her, and there was a few. I mean, I just picked people at random that I found interesting. But I will say, I stopped following a lot of people as a couple years ago, just because it was like, okay, I kind of got a little disillusioned because people were starting to make it more a competition, and it wasn't fun anymore.
Yeah.
It was not fun.
Yeah. So all these episodes with the people you mentioned can be seen on your podcast or listened. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to include the link for all the people who want to check out. And also, I think I'm going to listen to the episodes myself. It sounds really interesting to hear.
Oh, trust me, and I will say this, I also, as someone that likes to learn, I try to have a back and forth conversation and because the only person you have to use in your show is you and your experiences and how you see language learning in the world and so forth and so on. So since I can't travel outside the US because I don't have a passport, the internet is my, way to communicate with people.
Yeah.
So I mean I did speak at I was invited in 2020 to International Podcast Day here in the States. And I was the only legally blind African American person from the US with a language learning podcast representing the US. So that was a big deal for me. And then I also did I spoke at the Polyglot conference online, the first online event, a couple years ago as well. Richard Simcott and I became really good friends. I love him a lot. He's such a sweetheart. But I mean, yeah, I kind of took a break from language learning for a while. Like I did start Greek using the Mango. I'm probably like 20% of the way being done with the first 100 hours. Or the first 20 hours of it. And then I just got to do the second 20 hours in order to get my little certificates. But yeah, I've dabbled in a lot of stuff. Like I've dabbled in Hindi, Sami. I've dabbled a little bit in
Sami?
Finnish. Sami,
Like
yeah.
Northern Sami or?
Huh?
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually interviewed the lady who learned Sami in like 3 months. I forgot her name. No,
Yeah.
Irina Dow. Irina Dow.
Yeah.
And I interviewed her some time ago because I was fascinated with a language that, was kind of like dying out. And I mean, don't get me wrong. Oh, I've interviewed Tim Keeley too. And there's like just a whole bunch of people I interviewed, trust me. And it's like 200 and almost 280 something episodes. Or I have not posted anything new, mainly because I've been kind of reconnecting with me as a person. And I kind of was what you would call burnt out because I was doing my podcast show for like 4 years straight with no break.
Yeah.
So I probably will return sometime next year. I'm just choosing to do other hobbies. And I mean, I was just consumed and I needed to come back to reality for a minute.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I stopped following a lot of people. I started getting a little bit disenchanted with the whole environment because it kind of felt like you have people with egos and
So the polyglot community, or which community are you talking about?
in the polyglot community, like I kind of felt like people were repeating themselves a lot. Okay, I already know how to learn a language, but I kind of felt like I want to learn the languages I want to learn. I've dabbled in all this so I can give people a variety of options if they want to choose. But me personally, I'd rather stick with the stuff that I enjoy, mostly for why I wanted to do it for. It wasn't to make like a massive payday or anything like that. It was just to, have a good time and talk to people that enjoyed it. But to me, it was almost like people were becoming really competitive. And
How did you notice that?
well, I kind of noticed a lot when, especially on YouTube itself, um, you know, and a lot of people said this themselves. It's like I had to take a break because I didn't feel like I was doing this for me anymore. I was doing this for, um, other people. And you kind of felt like, okay, if you didn't speak this language to a certain level and you're trying to have a conversation with what information you have in your brain of the language, right? You kind of got a lot of flack for it. People were like, well, if you can't speak this perfectly, blah, blah, blah. It was a lot. And then like there are people, I won't mention their names per se, but I will say that certain people had egos because they had like master's degrees in this stuff. And I was like, well, this is a hobby for me. I mean, I don't getting a degree in it.
Yeah.
You don't have to. Who am I proving this to? So I just said to myself, like, let me take a break because I can tell you, prime example, I interviewed Lindy Botas a little while ago. And I remember I think it was last year, she took herself off of all the social media.
Yeah.
Literally just kept her YouTube channel because she started to feel a certain way about, the language learning. She kind of felt it wasn't for her anymore, not in the way that it was prior.
Yeah.
And I can understand that when you're trying to learn something and then you got all these people where I speak 10 and 12 and 15 and 20. Well, okay, how proficient are you really in it? You see what I'm saying? Do you know a few phrases here and there? Can you hold a conversation for an hour? What can you do?
So
in
they are
each of these?
like judging attitudes.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
comments.
I kind of felt that way. And then on top of that, it was just like, I won't mention this person's name, but I was on a panel being interviewed internationally.
Yeah.
And this person made a comment that was inappropriate. Um, and I thought it was inappropriate, but I still kept my professionalism. And the moderator had to say, well, I have taught in the past, which I did. I taught English to foreigners here in Akron for a year, voluntary basis. And I enjoyed every moment of it. I learned so much about these people they were from all over the place. And I enjoyed it. I did it for a whole year. But that was the basis of me teaching English or helping teach English.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it was like, okay, I don't need to have a master's degree in something in order to show my value. If people like what they hear, then they'll keep listening. Well, that's great, but I'm not creating courses. I don't have a desire to create courses. I don't have like a website that you go get merch on. No. I just like to share what information I like to share and call it a day. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, I'm not going to be upset about it. But I do believe if you're going to be on a panel with someone, don't embarrass the other person just to make yourself look.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I saw certain attitudes with certain people, and I just stopped following them, and yeah. But I think a lot now is changing with the language community because I haven't seen a lot of people as of lately. I mean, I have had some beef with a few people that have said you can't learn without going to school, which is a bunch of crap.
What?
I mean, there are a few people that have that type of an ego. But once again, I haven't met you in person, so I'm not going to judge you, but yet that kind of rubs me the wrong way. Like, there are plenty of people that learn languages in their own house, and they don't have to leave to go over to someone else's country to do it. Now, mind you, I campaigned for years for certain conferences to be online because certain people cannot afford to go to Europe or to go to Asia or wherever. They just can't afford that. The average person doesn't make that kind of money to be traveling anyway.
Yeah.
So, if it wasn't for the pandemic, I don't know if we would have had the Polyglot conference online or even the Polyglot gathering online.
Mm.
You know, which, but it took that in order for people to wake up and realize this is a good idea.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention, I also did speak for 6 minutes at Women in Language in 2019.
Yeah.
So
that's
talking about,
Australian or?
oh, no. The Women in Language, Kirsten Cable, Lindsay Williams, and Shannon Kennedy host that online conference. Yeah, they haven't hosted it this year because of other life commitments, but I guess they'll be back next year with it. But it's a 4-day online conference
Mm.
that they have
Yeah.
since 2018, which was a great idea. I mean, I listen to most of these people, and I've talked to most of these people and interviewed them and whatnot, and they're great people for what they do, and especially as far as women in the language space, because the language space is saturated with a lot of men, but it's not enough women. And
Yeah.
then on top of that, it's not enough minorities either.
Mm.
Like, I would like to see more Asians. I would like to see more people from the Middle East.
Yeah.
I would like to see more people from Africa.
Yeah.
More people of color. I would like to see that.
So this is based on your experience on the people who are in the Polyglot conferences, or generally on YouTube making something.
Yeah, in the community.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, because I've been a part of different groups and I've gotten out of them for many reasons. And a lot of it is, you can follow someone like Ollie Richards, and I love Ollie Richards to death. He's great. But you can follow him, and he has like almost 20K people in his group now. And I remember when it was small. And the more people you have, the more opinions you have, the more people, just in general, everyone thinks an expert. And after a while, it just becomes a little disheartening and very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of groups I left because a lot of people didn't understand disabilities, or they wanted you to understand their situation, or, people would put up pictures, but they wouldn't put in the description box what the picture was in words, where someone's screen reader could read it to them. And it was just like, but if I were to put something up and I didn't do that, then they would have a hissy fit. And I was like, oh no, you can't have it both ways. And then when you try to defend yourself, your stuff would get taken down. I just said, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, I just left. And everybody's like, why'd you? Because I'm tired of being treated like crap. I'm not in here for that. But, that's another thing. And then you have people who are one-on-one. They're not friendly to a lot of visual disabled people, or even deaf people for that matter. So it's not the people that's running the events or the rooms. It's the people in them. So, I mean, but you can't control what other people do. But at the same time, you want to feel like you're in a space that you can feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
So I kind of took a pause from even learning languages because I just got burnt out.
Yeah, I understand. I have followed a bit some of these communities, but I have never been like a part. I've mostly like watched some YouTube videos from people who are maybe have been speakers in the conferences and other places, but yeah, I have no personal experiences about how these communities are. So it was interesting to hear your perspective and experience, and also sometimes the videos have a lot of like negative people commenting. So I've thought that okay, I'll just practice my languages how I practice with the people who might not be like in the language communities, just people with whom I share some interests. And
oh yeah, I start to get the same way. Like I was on Clubhouse and I just closed my account yesterday because I'm hardly on it anymore. They've changed so much. I just got disinterested. But I tried to even do tutoring. And I'm going to be honest, a lot of the people today, they don't want to pay for people's services. They want everything to be free, and that's just not how it is.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, but they're willing to pay hundreds of dollars on a course, and then if it doesn't work out, then they're screwed unless they do it for 30 days and then they send it back because they don't, it's not for them. But aside from that, like, I guess for me personally, like I've done free, I've done paid. I have not done italki. I have an italki account, but I have not paid for an italki lesson yet. Like you, I try to find people that I can be friends with and just talk.
Yeah.
But aside from that, like I'm in certain groups. Like I'm in a Finnish group, even though I haven't practiced Finnish in God knows how long. And I mean, I'm still at A0 with that, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of got interested in it because of Dr. Alexander Arguelles. When he went over to Finland and he learned the language. I mean, he learned some of it before he got there, but he had a Finnish name and all that. And he had started communicating with people from a different town or village, and like they talked in nothing but Finnish, and they were talking about this is what this is for this leaf or this plant or whatever in Finnish.
Yeah.
And he went to school with the kids, and I mean, he had so much exposure. It was like 12 hours a day for like 4 to 6 to 8 weeks or something. And now he's teaching it at Concordia University. He has these little language boot camps where there is nothing but you're immersed in it from day one. There's no English, no whatever your language is that particular language, which I like. I love that idea of I don't want to speak my language, I want to speak yours. And I will continuously keep my mind in that frame set of it doesn't matter how much of the language I know, I will keep my mind in that language so I can keep trying to speak it as much as possible and think in it as much as possible. Because once I go to English or someone tries to distract me, I'm kind of screwed after that. So, yeah, that forces me to keep using the language by thinking in that language and not letting any other languages I know, bits and pieces or whatever, to come into that whatever language that is. And it actually has worked for me.
Yeah.
It took me a while to, perfect my method of doing it, but yeah.
Yeah. Actually, my wife, who's Ukrainian, she learned Finnish when she came here and attended a course where the teacher only spoke Finnish. So a bit the same as Alexander's course.
Yeah.
And I've watched a few videos about how, like, what are good ways of teaching. And in Japan, I also found a successful language school where they mainly speak in Japanese. So I think this is a great way of learning a language, just trying to learn in that language.
Right, because I mean, in that way, like, and another tip, what are your hobbies in your language? So whatever your hobbies are, if you like to read books, comic books, things, news, switch it over to the language you're learning. Even if you don't know a lot of it, just keep putting yourself listening and reading all the time, speaking all the time. Even if you make mistakes, you're making them.
Yeah.
You'll learn from. You'll even catch yourself once you get to that point where you have a good grasp of the language. Oh, well, I meant to say this instead of that. Yeah, and I've done that myself even with Russian. So I mean, yeah, I'll tell you, one of my favorite shows is Al Heba.
What's that? Is it Arabic?
It's an Arab show. It's on Netflix. Yeah, Alhaybe is A-L and then Haybe.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's a very good show. Now, mind you, it's a Ramadan show, so it's about 4 or 5 seasons, and it's like 30 episodes per season. But let
Yeah.
me tell you, if you binge watch that, now I had to do English subtitles.
Yeah.
But because my Arabic wasn't that great, but I loved it so much, I couldn't put it down.
I
But
have to,
it was shot out of
yeah.
Beirut. Yeah, so. But
Well,
I like that show. Yeah.
I have to check that out. I think I haven't seen that. Maybe they don't show it in Finland because it depends also on the country what they show. And I've seen most of the Arabic shows that they show here in Netflix. So maybe I'll have to change my VPN settings.
Yeah, but I love that show. I canceled my Netflix because I was watching other things and I was tired of paying the money.
Mm.
But I will say that is something I always tell people. If you like to cook, learn how to cook in that language. Learn the food, the measurements and all that, the ingredients you're looking for and that language. And I've done YouTube videos where I found people and I've learned how to make different things. I learned how to cook a lot of Lebanese and Egyptian food, Palestinian food.
Yeah.
Now that I'm vegan, I no longer eat meat, dairy, or fish.
Mm.
I still am able to make really decent meals, from different places around the world, and it kind of makes you more appreciative of someone else's culture when you're able to make food from someone else's country.
Mm.
And then I take pictures of it, and then I post it on my Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah. Oh,
And so people are like, "Wow, that's so good."
yeah.
And yeah, I remember I made tabbouleh for the first time, and I butchered it because I used the wrong number of uh, what was it? Bulgur wheat.
Mm.
And I was supposed to use the number 1. I used the number 3. Number 3 was like for like soups and stuff,
Yeah.
pilafs.
Yeah.
I used the number 3, and then I had gotten a regular tomato, and I suck at chopping stuff up really small.
Mm.
And this is before I figured out I could have just got cherry tomatoes and cut them in half and then cut them in half again, but I was just learning at the time. And I had made this. And someone said, "Well, that didn't look too bad." Well, of course you got people giving their opinion about it. And I got 1,350 views because someone thought I butchered the tabbouleh.
Yeah. Yeah. Where did you post these photos? On Instagram or which platform?
Yeah, I
Facebook?
have Instagram and I have them on my Facebook page.
Mm.
Yeah. My Facebook page, Chenelle Patrice Hancock at Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I can email you the
Sure. All the links I will include them here.
yeah. Yeah, but I mean I love to cook and I love, um entertainment, media and books and whatnot. I'm a big Star Trek, Star Wars fan.
Mm.
Um so I've been reading a lot of Star Trek and Star Wars books this year, along with a few other memoirs and biographies and mostly in English.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm almost my goal is to read 100 books. I'm 22 away from that goal. So I do a
100,
lot of
100 books in 1 year, or what did you say? 100 books in.
and I said 100 books in a year. I know what
Ah,
happened before the year's up. I started in January.
yeah.
So now I'm at 78 books.
Oh, wow.
And so yeah, but I've read a lot of memoirs, biographies. I've probably read about 40 Star Trek books. And then
Yeah.
I've read like a handful of Star Wars books and uh yeah, you know how many of those? I mean, there's like 381 Star Wars books. Star Trek books is like 859. I'm like, I just pick what I want to read and
Oh, that's a lot.
listen to. That's a lot. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I refuse to read all of them, but just the ones that interest me. Yeah,
And,
I'm a
and
big movie buff.
do you read
So-
also about Star Trek and Star Wars in different languages?
No, I haven't done that yet. But I have read Game of Thrones in French.
Mm. Like all
But
how many episodes are there in the books? Is
the
it
book,
eight,
Game
seven
of
or
Thrones,
eight?
5. It's like 5
Five.
books.
Yeah.
But then they have Fire and Blood, which I'm about to finish reading. And then, which is what House of the Dragon's based off of. And then, I mean, he has a couple other books. I mean, the world is waiting for Winds of Winter, so we're just waiting.
Mm. Yeah.
Which follow him on Facebook anyway. I love George R.R. Martin. He's awesome.
Yeah.
But, I do have to say though, I did interview the language content creator for Game of Thrones, David
Peterson.
Peterson. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I interviewed David and his wife Jessie also.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, he was a sweetheart. I loved him.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because I still want to get George R.R. Martin at some point.
Oh well, that's yeah.
I'm trying to work on that.
Yeah. I hope you will
I was
succeed.
Yeah, I was I was the first person, I think, in the Polyglot community to interview him for a podcast show. I know that he was at the Polyglot gathering, and that Tetsu Young
David
and
or who?
David, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Kirsten contacted me and asked me for his, and I said, sure, you know. And so she was able to interview him, and she interviewed the guy who created Klingon too, because she met him at the Polyglot gathering when it was in Canada.
Yeah.
Some years ago. So it was kind of cool to watch, you know. I'm kind of sad that we haven't seen enough of those, like the Polyglot, you know, Lang Fest. We haven't seen that in a while. You know, but yeah, I know that the Polyglot conference is coming up online next month from the 4th to the 8th online, and then it's going to be the 26th, 27th, or 27th, 28th, something like that, in Budapest, Hungary, for the 10-year anniversary of the conference. So I wonder if Luke is going to be there. Yeah, but yeah, I enjoy him, and I enjoy a lot of the polyglots, especially the ones that have been there for a long time. For the most part, a lot of them are extremely nice that I've met, but there's a few where some of them have some ego issues.
Yeah. Okay.
And I was just like, okay.
Yeah.
You know, in the back of my head, you know, I always believe that, you know, when you come on someone's show, you know, I am extremely professional.
Yeah.
But you do have people where they think that they're all that because of what they're doing. I was like, okay, that's great. I'm glad, but yeah, that wasn't necessary or right, but at the end of the day, you know, people are people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I haven't done an interview in about a year.
Oh, really?
Well, I haven't done an interview for my show.
For your show, yeah.
In a year.
Yeah.
But I needed to take a break. I think after February this year, I just said I needed a break.
Yeah.
So I have not like had any interviews, and like somebody wanted me to be on their show and help them out with their stuff. And I was like, right now, my mental space isn't there. I'm just tired. And I just want to do other things, and I will come back to it, you know,
Yes.
when I feel comfortable doing so. Because I'm going to be honest, when I watch these people, and I've watched a lot of people, and I'm just like, y'all are repeating each other. Like, I noticed that a lot.
What do you think? What are they repeating so much?
A lot of how do you start a language? Well, my personal take on that is if you know how you learn, that's better than listening to somebody on the internet.
Mm.
Because how you learn and what tools you use in order to learn whatever it is you want to learn is how you're going to do it. Now, yes, your learning style may change over time, and that's the case for anybody, regardless of sight, partial sight, no sight. Your learning style is going to change.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I can sit there and say, well, how do you learn this? And then as soon as I say it, I'm going to kick myself in the butt because I'm like, well, wait a minute. I know how I learned this. I can use the same method I did for this. And 9 times out of 10, I do. But it's, I kind of feel like, okay, if people are that stuck on not, okay, I don't know if I'm going to pay you hundreds of dollars to teach me something when I can do it for a fraction of the price or next to nothing, depending on what materials I have in my own toolbox.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, okay, you have to know you as a person and how you learn. Because how Steve Kaufman learns, or Dr. Krashen, or Richard, or Ollie, or somebody learns is totally different than how you, the individual, is learning. You can ask people for all the advice in the world, but are you going to take that advice? Are you going to use it? You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you going to figure out a way for you to be able to learn this yourself? Now, if it is a language where there's not that many resources, then that might be a problem.
Yeah.
You might have to create your own resources.
Yeah.
And some people have done that for themselves.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's like, how many times do we need to hear someone's opinion on how you learn Japanese or how you learn Mandarin?
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to learn one of 3 ways or a combination of those 3. Tactile, kinesthetic with your hands, audio with your ears, visual with your eyes. Oh, of course, you can speak, you can immerse yourself, which is a great idea. But some people can't even do that, depending on if they have a secondary disability or what may be getting in the way. But I kind of feel like, I don't know how many times I want to hear someone say, well, I can teach you how to learn this in 7 days, or I can teach you how to learn this in a week, or I can teach you how to learn this in it. No.
Yeah, I agree.
It takes a lifetime to get to where you want to be.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's so much repetitive videos and content, and what annoys me the most is when people say, don't do this, don't do it like this, like don't learn grammar. But for me, I like learning grammar, so it annoys when someone says that don't learn grammar. But yeah, for some people it
don't
works.
Learn grammar, don't learn with vocabulary lists. Okay, you don't need to know every flower. I agree with that. But what are you learning it for your daily life? How, if you want to interact in your own life, because that would be more beneficial.
Yeah.
If you're trying to do it for your own life, like, okay, I need to go to the grocery store, but I'm learning Spanish this week. So let me go to a Spanish supermercado or el restaurante. Entonces, then you can. Now, I've done that. I've done that where I've gone to a restaurant where they have a restaurant supermarket in the same place. And I asked for everything I wanted in Spanish. Now, I said at the beginning of this that I'm a big foodie. So I go for the food first.
Yeah.
I mean, I go for all the days of the week, months of the year, all that crap. But I go for what if my stomach is calling me for food, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So for me, that's, and they liked my accent. They wanted to know where I was from. But I will say that is fun though, when you can speak a language and throw yourself into the accent and they not know that you're from the US. Like they really thought I was from like France or Russia or somewhere. And
yeah.
somewhere in, soy americana país, entonces, or Mexico, or Puertorriqueño, entonces. So because of that, I've been able to get away with that.
Mm.
But overall, like, I think that's my pet peeve. Like, I can teach you how to speak a language in 21 days. Really?
Yeah.
You better be hoping that 21 days you will say hello, goodbye, how are you? I mean, but you have to practice, of course.
Mm.
But yeah, to me, I think that's the part that I get annoyed with. But YouTube is really interesting for those sort of things. And it's also interesting because you can tell the people who have beef with each other
Oh, really?
when they start
Okay.
doing reactionary videos.
Mm.
And I
I
just
mean,
find that to be so amusing. But I mean, like I said, I kind of cut myself off from the Polyglot community a little bit because I needed a breather.
mm.
I was like, if I come back, I come back. If I don't, it's not the end of the world. I mean, I still keep in contact with certain people.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm, you know, I got so many different hobbies and interests that I want to pursue. And I just turned 46 this year.
Mm.
So life's too short, you know?
Yeah.
But I mean, the good thing is, it's a beautiful thing to be able to learn a language, even if it's a little bit of it, because you learn about the people, the culture,
Yeah.
The person's identity.
Yeah.
I mean, there's more to life than English. And this is coming from someone that speaks in an English speaking country where there's
Yeah.
over 440 languages.
Yeah.
So yeah.
One thing that came into my mind, so all these famous YouTubers, I think they are inspirational and good. I think like interesting people, but my priority in this podcast is to like mostly invite people who might not be even polyglots or language enthusiasts, but mostly people who have like some unique stories. For example, I've had an astrophysicist from Russia, from Mariel Republic, who speaks Mari as a native language, and from
Heard of that.
like, yeah, and I had from Komi Republic, and most of the people are not language enthusiasts. So mostly, I want to have people who might be quite unknown for the world and sharing their
Right.
unique story.
Right.
And I mean, I would definitely take these famous polyglots as my guests, but I think there are so many videos already where they have been each other's guests or from guests in different shows, and I think
Oh
I've
God,
heard
yes.
so many times. I mean, I would love to speak with Steve Kaufman and Luca and all these people, but I think I want to create something something unique that that I haven't heard myself. I want to
Right.
like have these interesting conversations where I learn something new. So that's why I actually,
Right.
when I asked David, I had no idea who he was. I just accidentally found his Tumblr and
Right.
saw that he had interesting like content, and I just asked him, and when he introduced himself I was like, oh, what? He has created like all these languages to Game of
Oh God.
Thrones and
He,
all
he's
the
he, he was a lot of fun.
yeah.
I loved it. I loved it. I jumped up and down when he said yes.
Yeah.
I was able, someone got me his Twitter handle and I was able to, and I sent him my stuff,
Mm.
the stuff I had, but he had done the 400 or the 100, the show, the 100.
Mm.
And I went through a week watching all 6 seasons of the show from beginning to end as homework
Yeah,
because he was the person who created the language for that show.
that's one of my
Not,
favorite shows actually.
yeah. Well, it was good up until the last season where I'm like, What's going on?
Yeah. The last one. I haven't seen all of the episodes in the last one. Yeah, the last one wasn't as good as maybe the first 4 or 5.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, after Abby died, I was like, well, where the hell are they going to go with this? And I just, but you know, it's funny because I had never watched that before, but I was like, oh, well, this is kind of cool. You know, I binge watched all of it in like 4 days or whatever, 5 days. And then I interviewed him and I enjoyed it. Was so much fun. And, you know, I was proud of myself for getting that interview. I mean, there was a lot of people I was proud to get interviews for, but like you say, it's, you know, I do know that a lot of people follow the big people all the time, and you know, they might buy their stuff or whatever, which is great. But I'm all about, you know, who else is doing something that's not so marketing, you know? Well, buy my course or buy my book or subscribe to this, you know, like after a while, it kind of got a little bit too much as far as like, okay, I'm trying to make a profit here. So, yeah, but I will say I have met some really cool people in the language community for the most part, but I kind of like a lot of the unknown people that aren't as well known. You know, I'm just a people person altogether. So for me personally, I learned some stuff, but I kind of felt like a lot of it was just too repetitive, and I started to get dissatisfied. You know, I saw a lot of different changes and whatnot, and you just have people where you would be in uh rooms with some of these really big wig people just having conversations, and you got people that might speak more than 20 languages as a prime example, and you just kind of felt a little bit out of your league or uncomfortable, intimidated, I would say. I mean, I was in a room with Tim Keeley for 5 hours once at a conference, and I could understand some of the stuff he was saying, but once it got to the Asian languages and other languages, I didn't understand. Like literally after 5 hours, I had to leave.
Yeah.
Because I started to have a headache.
Yeah. Okay.
That's how much overload, and I wasn't even talking. You know, it was a lot. I until this day, I still don't understand how that man knows as many languages as he does, but he's freaking brilliant. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, but I have seen people leave, you know, mainly because they were just not, it wasn't what it used to be.
Yeah.
It wasn't fun anymore. You know, it's more about people, let's cash in. Let's make myself an influencer. Dude, I just want to communicate.
Yeah.
That's all I want to do, whether it's basic or it's not basic. You know, but I don't want to be made to feel like my little bit isn't enough. You know, I know it's enough for me, but you know what I mean? Like if you're on the other side of the screen, you're having a conversation, it's, you know, it can be quite cumbersome at times when you're in a room with a bunch of people and they speak like upteen languages and you're just like, okay.
Yeah.
I'll do a lot of listening sometimes because sometimes I just don't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
You know, wanting to throw and I kind of feel like that's what it's come down to. Like people want to show off what they know and how much they know. More so than let's just have a good time. I think a lot more people would be less intimidated and more relaxed.
Yeah.
You know, for the most part. But I do commend what you're doing because I think that's great that you're bringing people on your show that's not as well known and that just enjoy learning languages. And I appreciate you taking the time to want to talk to me today, because I mean, I have not done an interview in, oh, gee, well, maybe interviewed like 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been that long. So yeah, I mean, but I really enjoyed this conversation a lot. I I was kind of excited about doing it because, I got to give my ups and downs of what I thought language learning was, especially, you know, having a podcast show. I think the one thing I take away from it is, and the one thing I actually learned, you need to vet your guests carefully. Don't just ask anybody, because some people, they'll come on there thinking that you're their personal secretary. You're supposed to remind them of when. No, you have calendar on your phone, I'm sure.
Mm.
Like, yeah, I've had that a couple times. And I had to let them know after it was over, okay, this was not appropriate. I might not interview you again. And I mean, you have people who, they think that they're the biggest thing, because a lot of people are paying attention to them. So they're hot right now. I was like, yes, but you can be hot now and you can be not hot later. So, fame is fleeting. 15 minutes of fame means absolutely nothing these days. So, I mean, unless you're making millions of dollars doing this, good luck. Not everybody is. I mean, unless you're like Benny Lewis, Richard Sincott, who was it? Lydia Makova, a few other people that made some serious money. But not everybody is going to be rich off of this. And I think a lot of times people think that they are. I think a lot of times people, start out wanting to share what they, their ups and downs of language learning, which I think is great. I think it's great to be vulnerable in that instance, because only someone that's learning another language is going to identify what you're going through. The regular population really isn't, because they don't do this as a hobby. But you also got to remember, it's a hobby. You can change hobbies like you change socks. So, which is quite frequent. And at the end of the day, that's what I looked at it as a hobby, not to get rich. I also saw it as a way for me to meet new people and connect with people from around the world, which I believe that I'm still doing that to some extent, but now I'm kind of, interested in other things that I neglected because I was so immersed in this. I didn't know what to do with myself. So now, I told a friend of mine who's in the Caribbean that I would do her show next year, because I just need my own space right now personally. Because I will say this, if you don't take breaks in between doing seasons and you just do what I did, no breaks, yeah, it can be quite tiring.
Yeah.
And you just become worn. And then on top of that, I think I had a little bit of imposter syndrome going on too, because of all the people that were, they had more followers, they had more this, they had more that, they had, people were buying their stuff. You see what I'm saying? I'm working my butt off. I don't really see that many results. And it was a lot, so I just had to unplug. And sometimes you have to in order to get perspective. Plus, there was other life events going on in my life. And so as a result of this, I enjoyed my time in the language community. I mean, it's not over. It's just, I just took some time away, and I'm going to continue to until I feel comfortable coming back, to, do some more shows, or I'm going to have you on my show.
Yeah, I would be happy to be a guest.
Yeah.
When you continue.
Yeah, because I said I might start next year. I just needed to take at least a year off
Sure.
to get my batteries recharged and figure out what direction I want, or because I mean I was doing episodes like 2 a week at one point, and then I was doing 1 a week, and then I just, and then it got to the point I got discouraged because I couldn't find anybody.
Mm.
And, people would flake on me and snowball me when it came down, ghost me when it came down to wanting to be on my show. And I just said, you know what? If people are going to start acting like this, why am I doing this stuff?
Yeah.
So I mean, a lot of times you can start out having good intentions to do something, and then once you get really caught up into it, you know, I just guess I had lost the juice to really want to continue for a while. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna take some time off and just do me, Chenelle, for a while and
Yeah.
get myself together. For me before I continue with, the show or whatever I decide to do with it.
Yeah, just let me know. I'm always ready to talk about languages and my experiences. It's always interesting for me.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I have to say my language learning journey it was interesting, but then I had to realize, well, why am I learning these? Is this what I really want to learn? You know, and I think when I do come back, it probably will be for the little bit of languages that I really want to focus on, just myself. And
Yeah.
I might go back to my beginning roots of how I started Russian just for those 2 languages, and which are French and Arabic. Just because, I really do enjoy those. And
Yeah.
I feel that if you're going to do something, don't half-ass it, do it 100%. Take your time with it. Don't rush. Don't compare yourself to other people. Because I got to the point where that was starting to happen. So as a result of that, I had to take a break. And then I saw people, they had let go of their Facebook pages. They had let go of their podcast shows, their social media for, other reasons. And then I started to see a pattern. People were getting burned out.
Mm.
So yeah, I guess my advice to anybody, if you really want to do this because you want to, don't do it because of what you see on Facebook or social media. If there are languages you want to learn, if you just want to learn one language, go for it.
Yeah.
But don't be influenced or suckered by what other people do, because how they do it is how they do it. How you're going to wind up doing it might be totally different. But as long as you enjoy the process and have fun with it, that's what matters.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those were perfect final words. But of course, if there's still something you want to say, you can say. But in the beginning, I promised you 1 hour. Now we're a bit over time, but yeah, if you want to say something about your maybe current language goals, or if you don't have them, or anything, you can tell it now.
Okay. Well, right now I don't really have any language goals. I mean, my goal right now is to finish reading these books that I said I was going to read, 100 books in a year. I'm at book 78, so I got 22 more left to read. And yes, they're all in English, by the way. And they're all audiobooks or ebooks with me having voiceover read it to me. But yeah, I think my goal probably for 2024 is to get back to learning Arabic, and also going back to speaking French. Those are my goals pretty much. I mean, I don't have an end date for when, and I don't know how far I want to get with it. I mean, I can't read the newspaper and listen to the news in French. So my French vocabulary is pretty high. I just have to speak it. So that's what I'm going to probably do next year. And I probably will be back I don't know if it's going to be a weekly thing, a monthly thing. I haven't decided yet, but I will let everybody know. I want to thank everybody for listening today. If you want to reach me, you can at Chenelle Patrice Hancock at facebook.com, ChenellePatriceHancock. You also can reach me at Twitter at Chenelle.Hancock at twitter.com. I'm on those two platforms. And Chenelle's Language Learning Journey podcast. You can find anywhere where podcasts are downloaded. And if you like food, you can also go to the Blind Vegan podcast and subscribe there. Follow me there too. I haven't posted anything in a while, but I will be eventually. So thank you, Christian, for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming. And thanks for everyone for watching the episode or listening. And we will see in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.